It's night 2 of the Fox Soul live DNC viewing party. I'm Brooke Thomas, along with Claudia Jordan and Selena Johnson, Seth Lemon, and Dr. Sean. Welcome. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining in with us. Big night tonight. Michelle Obama is really what had everyone talking. She's who had everyone talking last night. It is what it is, was trending on Twitter. There was a lot of conversation I saw happening. People were excited that she was calling things like they were, which she hates politics. A lot of politicians don't do that. A big criticism I saw of the night last night was a lack of policy. People thought it was a bunch of exciting moments, a lot of talk and cool sound bites, but lacking policy. What do the speakers need to do tonight to hold on to that momentum that Michelle Obama got going?
I think they should
go ahead, Claudia.
Just keep doing what they're doing. I think people need to stop complaining. It's never going to be perfect. They're always going to find something to complain about. Even with the perfect speech that Michelle Obama delivered, there's still going to be criticism because we're never happy. And that's why we're with this jackass in office right now. So just let them do what they're going to do. They're going to be fine. It's day one. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think that they're not dumb. Okay, they've done Democratic conventions forever now. So I'm sure they're well aware of policy and well aware that they have to touch on it. I just think that in this climate, I feel like, especially being a citizen myself, we're afraid and we are uncertain. And there's a lot of different emotions that are happening right now that need to be addressed first so that people can listen, for the rest of the week. Because I think that ending it with Michelle Obama, like now people are like, okay, well, let me see what they got to say. Since Michelle said, let me just listen and see what they're going to say. Because we needed some reassurance, from this side of the ticket. Not really reassurance, but we really needed to feel amped up. And I think that's what this opening was about.
Yeah, if I could jump in and say this, for those who say there weren't enough policy, you obviously missed Bernie Sanders' speech because 3/4 of his speech was policy. And secondly, you should invest in reading the platform because that's where the policy is. The speeches at night are not to rehearse what's in the platform. So just how about you do some reading? That's good for the soul.
Then there's that.
You know what I'm saying?
Put the people on the spot, but I mean,
Yeah,
I know, but to tell you down to the internet, do your research.
Do your research. Read the platform. Claudia is absolutely right, and I thought about this last night after I had to get off. Is I think in the media we have to be really careful about how much attention we give that little small segment with a big mouth, because we tend to amplify the negative. When this is a time to do exactly what Claudia and Selena are saying, and that is, Selena's right. We're fighting for our lives. How about we focus on that?
It'll be interesting to see after that strong finish from Michelle Obama last night. It was one of the first times we've seen such a strong condemnation of President Trump with her using his name. And she said, let me be as clear as I possibly can. We're hearing tonight, though, that Dr. Joe Biden, the headline speaker for tonight, is not even supposed to mention President Trump by name during her remarks. So it'll be interesting to see how she makes the case for Democrats, for Republicans and independents that they want to come along this journey without even mentioning him.
And I'm sure even if she doesn't mention his name, he's still going to be big mad like he was last night. I'll say his name, Donald J. Trump. You were so bothered last night. You have absolutely zero poker face. Like when Michelle Obama speaks, you can't see her. Your wife can't see her, although she's probably taking notes up for she could be ready for next Thursday, her damn self. So I was here for the outrage this morning. Trump was all mad. He was on Twitter. She's divisive and she was in over her head. I'm like, shut up.
Yeah, putting it in advance because the number of COVID deaths has jumped by about 20,000 since she first recorded that. So the number was even higher, and he was using that to make her look bad. But in essence, it's a reflection of the leadership that we currently have.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot to fight back against when you saw a lot of the Republicans. There wasn't a lot to fight back against at all. I saw a senator was complaining that they had a celebrity hosting, kind of moderating the DNC when there's a celebrity that was voted into office that leads their party. And a lot of people were pointing that out. Trump, his biggest, like you said, Seth, his biggest complaint was that she got the number of deaths wrong, which only makes
I think her getting the deaths wrong by 20,000 after the fact is a lot less outrageous than him getting the number of deaths wrong. He said 15, it was going to be over by April, so he needs to STFU. I'm just saying.
Who are you most excited to see tonight? We've got Stacey Abrams, Dr. Biden, AOC. Colin Powell was just announced. He's going to speak tonight. Who are you all looking forward to?
Stacey Abrams for me, because I haven't really seen her speak out on such a large platform lately. It could be me just missing her, but
I haven't either.
You know, after Michelle Obama, you know, Stacey Abrams, as eloquent as she is, she's a writer anyway. She's orator. She's about to come. I think she's about to. I don't know if she's going to top Michelle, but she's definitely going to be neck and neck because she's very, very smart and she's very, very woke. So I can't wait to see what she has to say, especially because she hates Trump. And she should have won in my state. So I can't wait to see what she has to say.
You right.
You'll definitely hear from the two former presidents that are going to speak tonight. President Bill Clinton and President Jimmy Carter are both supposed to speak out. And it'll be interesting to hear these former gentlemen who held the office possibly critique the man who holds it right now and speak to where they feel the country needs to go moving forward. And of course, the Honorable Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is going to speak as well. She's only been given 60 seconds though. And so people have been going back and forth about that, whether that's enough time. But of course, the argument is that she can do a lot with that 60 seconds as the orator that she's known to be.
I imagine she's going to. That's going to be a speech that's going to get a lot of attention online. And I think also there were a lot of short speeches last night. Obviously, Michelle Obama's was very long. Bernie Sanders was very long. But I didn't see a big complaint of, oh, this person didn't get enough time after the DNC last night, after night one. Everyone seemed, whoever they were looking forward to see, they seemed pretty happy with what happened.
I think with AOC, though, the good thing about her is she doesn't need a lot of time to get straight to the point. She's a very concise speaker. Like, she gets right to the point immediately. There's not a lot of beating around the bush with AOC. She gets in, gets the message out there very clearly, and gets out. I'm excited to see Joe Biden because, she's had Joe's back for 40 years. And if you've ever seen talk about the family that how she stepped in, it's enough to kind of get you a little lump in your throat, with all that family.
I'm excited to see Jill too. I'm excited to see her as well.
The family has been through a lot. That's a good point because it's going to be a way to personalize Joe Biden in a way that still some people, even though he's been vice president, there's some people that believe it or not, he's still new to them.
I'm looking forward to seeing what the former presidents will do. I think that, I'm not anticipating anything earth-shattering from them. They're two very different people with two different presidencies, but I have this thing about, the presidency. I just call me a sucker for that. But Jimmy Carter for me is an interesting figure. He's misunderstood. He's one of the few. He may be one of the only presidents you could say who was a moral president. America did not go to war the entire time that he was president, and so the country, I think, disrespects him in many ways. But I want to just say real quick something that Claudia said about the time. It's not about how much time you have; it's what you do with the time that you've been given. Because if you got something to say, you can really redirect this nation in 40 seconds, and then take the last 20 to just congratulate yourself.
Okay.
Last night we talked about kind of like who the audience is for this, right? If the DNC got it wrong, if they made good decisions. We were talking a lot specifically about AOC's speech, but there is such a difference in who's online and who's at home. Because I talked to a lot of my older family members, a lot of my younger family members too, at home, back home. I'm from Oklahoma. And they loved last night. They were no complaints. They were excited. They were pumped up. They were thinking about Michelle Obama and what she said. And so
I gotta cut you off real quick.
Oh, we got Stacey Abrams.
Yeah.
Let's go to Stacey.
An economic collapse and a reckoning with racial justice and inequality. So our choice is clear. A steady, experienced public servant who can lead us out of this crisis just like he's done before. Or a man who only knows how to deny and distract. A leader who cares about our families, or a president who only cares about himself. We know Joe Biden. America, we need Joe Biden. To make your voice heard, text VOTE to 30330. In a democracy, We do not elect saviors. We cast our ballots for those who see our struggles and pledge to serve, who hear our dreams and work to make them real, who defend our way of life by protecting our right to vote. Faced with a president of cowardice, Joe Biden is a man of proven courage. He will restore our moral compass by confronting our challenges, not by hiding from them or undermining our elections to keep his job. In a time of voter suppression at home and authoritarians abroad, Joe Biden will be a champion for free and fair elections, for a public health system that keeps us safe, for an economy that we build back better than before, and for accountability and integrity in our system of justice. We stand with Joe Biden because this isn't just about defeating Donald Trump. We are in this to win for America. So let's get it done.
All right, Stacey Abrams, what do we think?
You know what? It wasn't what I expected. It was very much like a PSA. I would have wanted to hear a little bit more from Stacey, but it was positive, so that's nice. But I think her placement might have been a little too early too. I think she should have been a little bit towards the end. But that's just me being biased.
I think she mentioned something that's important that Democrats are trying to focus on tonight. Instead of just convincing people to vote against Trump, they need to do a better job of convincing people to vote for Biden. And that means, of course, taking a look at the policy and especially what they're planning to do tonight to kind of pull at Americans' heartstrings with the story of Joe Biden losing his son, losing his family in that car crash, and Dr. Jill stepping in and being able to really show us how she saw him survive that struggle through his own eyes, and also his deep connection to John McCain, of course, losing his son Biden to a similar cancer. They're really trying to make the case that he is very empathetic and that people should vote for that rather than just voting against the president.
We've got Sally Yates up right now. We're going to go back to the DNC.
And countless dedicated public servants. Like me, these officials didn't swear an oath to a person or a party. Public servants promised to defend our Constitution, uphold our laws, and work on behalf of the American people. But from the moment President Trump took office, he's used his position to benefit himself rather than our country. He's trampled the rule of law, trying to weaponize our Justice Department to attack his enemies and protect his friends. Rather than standing up to Vladimir Putin, he fawns over a dictator who is still trying to interfere in our elections. He's even trying to sabotage our postal service to keep people from being able to vote. His constant attacks on the FBI, the free press, inspectors general, federal judges, they all have one purpose: to remove any check on his abuse of power. Put simply, he treats our country like it's his family business, this time bankrupting our nation's moral authority at home and abroad. But our country doesn't belong to him. It belongs to all of us. Joe Biden embraces that. He has spent his entire life putting our country first. He has never backed down from a challenge or a bully. He summons the best in us and lives by the values that define us as Americans: service, integrity, courage, compassion. There are countless stories of Joe Biden reaching out to someone in their moment of need. Well, this is our country's moment of need. We need a president who respects our laws and the privilege of public service, who reflects our values and cares about our people. We need a president who will restore the soul of America. We need Joe Biden.
Sally Yates, someone, as Tracy Ellis Ross mentioned earlier, very important to hear from someone who is willing to put her career on the line, to stand up against what she didn't agree with, an order from Donald Trump that she did not agree with. We don't see a lot of that. A lot of people, especially Republicans, are going along with what he's doing.
It was good to see her because, it seems so long ago because he's done so much scandalous stuff like this ever since. And so many other people have fallen by the wayside that didn't get in line. But, that was a big deal that she stood up to Trump against, with the unconstitutional, the Muslim ban. And she didn't deserve to be fired over that.
We're going to go to Chuck Schumer right now. We're going to toss it right back over to the DNC.
Is a sight I see out of my window every night. The Statue of Liberty, the same sight that greeted hopeful immigrants like my grandparents, a symbol of freedom and a beacon of hope to the world. Today, Donald Trump has divided our country, diminished our greatness, and demeaned everything that this statue represents. He even hid in a bunker as Americans were tear-gassed and beaten. Millions are jobless. 170,000 Americans have died from COVID. And Donald Trump says, it is what it is. Presidents should never say it is what it is. President Lincoln, honoring the great sacrifice at Gettysburg, didn't say it is what it is. President Roosevelt, seeing a third of the nation ill-housed, ill-clad, and ill-nourished, didn't say it is what it is. America, Donald Trump has quit on you. We need a president with dignity, integrity, and the experience to lead us out of this crisis. A man with a steady hand and a big heart who will never, ever quit on America. That man is my friend, Joe Biden. He will be a great president. But if we're going to win this battle for the soul of our nation, Joe can't do it alone. Democrats must take back the Senate. We will stay united, from Sanders and Warren to Manchin and Warner. And with our unity, we will bring bold and dramatic change to our country. Let me tell you some of the things we do. With President Biden, Vice President Harris, and a Democratic majority, we will make health care affordable for all. We'll undo the vicious inequality of income and wealth that has plagued America for far too long. And we'll take strong, decisive action to combat climate change and save the planet. We will protect voting rights, fight systemic racism in the criminal justice system and in our economy, and restore a Supreme Court that looks out for people, not corporations. We'll rebuild our infrastructure and make sure every home, from inner city to rural America, has broadband. We will save the post office and once and for all, defeat COVID-19, this evil disease. And, beckoned by the lady behind us, we will reform our immigration system so that immigrants yearning to breathe free will at last become American citizens. Together, we can reignite the hope once felt by millions of men and women, huddled masses on creaking ships, who glimpsed this mighty woman with her torch, knowing they could build a better life here in America. And out of this long national nightmare, America will finally awaken to a brighter future and a new day.
I really liked his speech. One of the things first of all, to say that Donald Trump quit on you was very powerful. To say that a president quit on you. But one of the things that he mentioned that I think hasn't been mentioned yet was that Democrats need to take back over the Senate. And that's very, very important, because when you look at this stimulus package and everything that's going on with them trying to vote and how difficult.
Selena, I hate to cut you off. We have to go to Caroline Kennedy.
Oh, wow. Okay, wait a minute.
Pick this back up.
Let me mute.
Themes of my grandfather's speech, courage, unity, and patriotism, are as important today as they were in 1960. And once again, we need a leader who believes America's best days are yet to come. We need Joe Biden.
I've admired Joe Biden since I was a Senate intern in 1974. He shared my Uncle Teddy's commitment to civil rights, women's rights, and working families. He was a senator who cared, who led, who inspired. That's why I helped choose him to be Barack Obama's running mate in 2008. When I was U.S. ambassador to Japan, I got to see Vice President Biden in action. He stepped off Air Force Two wearing his aviator glasses and a big smile, radiating American optimism and generosity. I saw a leader who was tough but fair, who commanded the trust and respect of other nations, and who always put America's interests first. Joe Biden's lifetime of public service reflects his unwavering commitment to our highest ideals.
In this election, our future is on the ballot. For my generation, it will define the rest of our lives. We need to tackle climate change. We need to end systemic racial injustice. We need to make healthcare available for everybody, and we need to rebuild an economy that helps working families. We can do this. We can reach these new frontiers, but only with a president who asks what he can do for our country and what together we can do to build a better world. It's up to us. Let's get it done. Let's elect Joe Biden, the next president of the United States.
It's a great pleasure for Jimmy and me to join you in celebrating our next president of the United States, Joe Biden. We've known and admired Joe and Jill for many years, and most recently, I've worked with them on tackling the demands faced by the more than 53 million unpaid caregivers in our country who are juggling work and other family responsibilities and putting their own physical and mental health and well-being at risk. Joe knows well, too well, the sorrows and struggles of being a family caregiver. From Joe's time as a young widower, thrust into single parenthood with a demanding job, to he and Jill caring for their own parents and their son Bo at the end of their lives. He knows caregiving is hard, even on the good days. Jill and I also know the challenges of caregiving for those who served in the military and returned with visible and invisible wounds. And we know those caregivers need a leader in the White House. Jimmy and I are voting for Joe because he recognizes the challenges facing our families and has the heart and the talent to make life better for all Americans.
When I ran for president in 1976, Joe Biden was my first and most effective supporter in the Senate. For decades, he has been my loyal and dedicated friend. Joe has the experience, character, and decency to bring us together and restore America's greatness. We deserve a person with integrity and judgment, someone who is honest and fair, someone who is committed to what is best for the American people. Joe is that kind of leader, and he is the right person for this moment in our nation's history. He understands that honesty and dignity are essential traits that determine not only our vision, but our actions. More than ever, that's what we need. During these uncertain times, Joe Biden realizes that many American lives can be saved each day through the use of masks and testing as recommended by our medical experts. Joe Biden must be our next president.
Good evening. A presidential election is the world's most important job interview. At the end, we hire a leader to help us solve problems, create opportunities, and give our kids better tomorrows. That's a tall order this year, with the COVID-19 outbreak on a path to killing 200,000 people and destroying millions of jobs and small businesses. How did Donald Trump respond? At first, he said the virus was under control and would soon disappear. When it didn't, he was on TV every day bragging on what a great job he was doing, while our scientists waited to give us vital information. When he didn't like the expert advice he was given, he ignored it. Only when COVID exploded in even more states did he encourage people to wear masks. By then, many more were dying. When asked about the surge in deaths, he shrugged and said, "It is what it is." But did it have to be this way? No. COVID hit us much harder than it had to. We have just 4% of the world's population, but 25% of the world's COVID cases. Our unemployment rate is more than twice as high as South Korea's, 2.5 times the United Kingdom's, more than 3 times Japan's. Donald Trump says we're leading the world. Well, we are the only major industrial economy to have its unemployment rate tripled. At a time like this, the Oval Office should be a command center. Instead, it's a storm center. There's only chaos. Just one thing never changes: his determination to deny responsibility and shift the blame. The buck never stops there. Now you have to decide whether to renew his contract or hire someone else. If you want a president who defines the job as spending hours a day watching TV and zapping people on social media, he's your man. Denying, distracting, and demeaning works great if you're trying to entertain or inflame. But in a real crisis, it collapses like a house of cards. COVID just doesn't respond to any of that. To beat it, you've got to actually go to work and deal with the facts. Our party is united in offering you a very different choice: a go-to-work president, a down-to-earth, get-the-job-done guy, a man with a mission to take responsibility, not shift the blame, concentrate, not distract, unite, not divide. Our choice is Joe Biden. Joe helped bring us back from a recession before, and he can do it again. In 2009, Barack Obama and Joe Biden started with the worst economy since the Great Depression. And when they were done, they delivered more than 6 straight years of job growth. What did Joe do? He accepted responsibility for implementing the Recovery Act. His work created a lot of new jobs and started many new companies in communities across our country. Now Joe's committed to building America back again. How? He's given us smart, detailed plans to invest in areas vital to our future: innovative financing for modern factories and small businesses, good jobs in green energy and conservation to combat climate change, a modern infrastructure that brings small town and rural America the connectivity and investment others take for granted, and a plan to ensure that Black Americans, Latino Americans, Native Americans, women, immigrants, and other communities left behind are full participants in our economy and our society. Joe Biden wants to build an economy far better suited to our changing world. Better for young people, better for families working and raising their kids, better for people who lost jobs and need new ones, better for farmers tired of being collateral damage in trade wars, better for workers caring for the sick, elderly, and people with disabilities, better because of a living wage and access to affordable higher education and healthcare, including prescription drugs, and to childcare, a secure retirement, and for the first time, paid family and medical leave. Joe won't just put his signature on a check and try to fool you into thinking it came from him. He'll work to make sure that your paycheck reflects your contribution to and your stake in a growing economy. In this job interview, the difference is stark. You know what Donald Trump will do with 4 more years: blame, bully, and belittle. And you know what Joe Biden will do: build back better. It's Trump's us versus them America against Joe Biden's America, where we all live and work together. It's a clear choice. The future of our country is riding on it. Thank you.
That's the best I've heard Bill Clinton sound in a long time. He did not have that much energy for Hillary Clinton 4 years ago. He was very motivated. I think he had some Red Bull tonight and maybe some Adderall. He was focused. He didn't stutter. He didn't stumble. He was almost Bill from the 90s.
Yeah.
Bill
just spit a hot 16 on these people. And hit them with a B and a B on the B back on the B side. Like, I'm happy that Bill spoke and so eloquently. Again, I'm glad to see people like Michelle Obama, Bill Clinton. You know, these are the trusted voices, even, you know, regardless of their records or regardless of what we believe, they've already been there, done that. So they can speak on what's going on right now because they've already been there and done that. So they're trusted voices. So I'm really glad to see him speak like that. And even Jimmy Carter, wasn't that his commentary, Jimmy Carter?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. Jimmy Carter is 95 years old, y'all. The fact that the man came through for the DNC is one in itself. So I'm excited that he said something.
He like an old 96 though.
He couldn't even have no real picture. He's just like, look here, I just do a voiceover and go sit down.
I don't think anybody has made more DNC appearances than Bill Clinton. This was his 11th time speaking. But if you think back to 2012, when he was making the case for Barack Obama's second term, that speech was much longer. It was about 50 minutes long. And it almost signals that Democrats are kind of trying to still rally around him as someone who is experienced, who held that role, but still being a little bit cautious now because of the Me Too movement and not wanting to alienate any women voters who might still have issues with the sexual misconduct allegations.
That's a good point, Seth. That's a good point.
He's currently kind of in the battle for our respect in that opinion, in that matter.
There's also a new star in the family as of now. I mean, the last few years. I think people are very excited to hear from his wife. People are excited to hear from Hillary Clinton. He's become Hillary's husband, the former president.
Okay. Well, you know, I think Bill Clinton is a wonderful example of something. The scriptures say that gifts come without repentance. And Bill Clinton he's a gifted political orator. He is, whether you right, wrong, or indifferent, right? His past is complicated. His issues and policies very critiqued, and rightfully so. All of that notwithstanding, the man can explain things in ways that people can relate to. And for everybody watching who wants to be involved in politics or wants to organize people or move a crowd, forget how you feel about Clinton and take notes and learn from him, because you can swallow the meat and spit out the bone.
And look at how successful he was. I mean, to piggyback off what you said, Dr. Sean, like, you know, it seems like every other, you know, time the administration changed from Republican to Democrat, the Republican is passing the baton off to the Democrat when the country is in a disaster, and the Democrat is pulling us out of the depths of hell once again. So say what you want about Bill Clinton and his indiscretions that we know of, one, while Donald Trump over here got 17 women and a possible, like, it's beyond a good spades hand. It's about 5 good spades hands. I'm just saying.
Okay. So. Okay.
That's a great point, Claudia. You're absolutely right. Every time Democrat comes back, at least in the last 20 years or so, Democrats have had to come back and rescue the country from malignant republicanism. And I think the other point that you're making, Claudia, implicitly through that, again, is that Bill Clinton, he has this ability. Barack Obama said that Bill Clinton should be the chief explainer, because he can explain the case and connect with people. And that is a gift, I'm telling you.
Yeah, he got it in just then.
His speech went from, it initially started a lot with why not Donald Trump, then seamlessly kind of led into why Joe Biden. So we got a little bit of both major arguments of what, you know, people are saying their main reasons why they're going to be voting, pandemic or not, come November.
And yet again, we're hearing the phrase, "It is what it is." That Axios interview that President Trump did, that quote is becoming infamous, and I think will be one of the top headlines from this week's convention.
And I think too, the trend that I'm seeing is that everybody is really trying.
We got to go back. I'm sorry, Selena, the second time in a row. AOC is up.
Good evening, bienvenidos, and thank you to everyone here today endeavoring towards a better, more just future for our country and our world. In fidelity and gratitude to a mass people's movement working to establish 21st century social, economic, and human rights, including guaranteed healthcare, higher education, living wages, and labor rights for all people in the United States. A movement striving to recognize and repair the wounds of racial injustice, colonization, misogyny, and homophobia, and to propose and build reimagined systems of immigration and foreign policy that turn away from the violence and xenophobia of our past. A movement that realizes the unsustainable brutality of an economy that rewards explosive inequalities of wealth for the few at the expense of long-term stability for the many, and who organized a historic grassroots campaign to reclaim our democracy. In a time when millions of people in the United States are looking for deep, systemic solutions to our crises of mass evictions, unemployment, and lack of healthcare, en el espíritu del pueblo, and out of a love for all people, I hereby second the nomination of Senator Bernard Sanders of Vermont for President of the United States of America.
Selena, I'm going to pick back up on what you were saying.
Oh, well, basically, I was just saying, it seems like the trend of, you know, the DNC so far has been to really highlight what Trump is not doing, what he's not doing, what he has done wrong, what he's done wrong. They come back with what they're going to do, not as much as we'd like to see. I like how Schumer came in and, you know, he really talked about some of the things that we're going to do, but we're really seeing them highlight, you know, what he hasn't done. Why do you guys think that is, since that we've already been inundated with what he hasn't been doing with television and social media. Why do you think that they're taking the time to do this in this particular moment as well?
I think putting it in a succinct package is what really is going to play to viewers and making that case. And showing how, as Michelle Obama said last night, he just has not been able to meet the moment, that he does not have the experience, he doesn't have the tact or the decency to be able to be a student of history, a student of fact, to be able to make complex decisions with competing ideas. And there's no clear way. I don't think it would be as clear had this been a live convention versus being able to have it taped and pre-produced and put together succinctly.
Mm-hmm. Selena, my answer to your question is, in addition to everything that Seth said, by the way, is to make it a referendum on Trump. You don't want this election to be a choice between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, because when it's a choice and all of the imperfections and the picadillos that come out of Biden's mouth, right, come into view. But when it's a referendum on Trump, you keep the light on him. He has the uncanny ability to destroy himself, not just one time, but every time.
I was telling a friend of mine, this is probably like, I won't say the easiest campaigning that Joe Biden's ever had to do, but kind of. He doesn't have to really go out and do that much. He has to just sit back and let Trump get on Twitter and just showing he has empathy on that alone. This is a president that has shown zero empathy for kids in cages, for women of victims of sexual assault, for immigrants that get turned away at the border or die in the attempt to cross the border to get a better life. He's shown zero empathy for anyone except himself. He doesn't even show empathy for his children except his favorite, Ivanka. That's it. Like, he doesn't show empathy for anyone. And
we're going to go back to the DNC. We've got Lisa Blenna.
But they're also learning about a man named Joe Biden, about how he restored decency to our government and integrity to our democracy. They're learning about how we conquered a pandemic, stood united for racial justice, and built our economy back better than before. They're learning about how his leadership gave their generation a fighting chance. They're learning about us too, about the resolve and the unity we showed against the forces of hatred and division, about the work we will do over the next 11 weeks, and about the night when, despite our distance, we came together to nominate Joe Biden for President of the United States, a nomination I'm honored to second.
So to you guys' point, Seth and Sean, Dr. Sean and Claudia, I think too, it puts him in a predicament, just to piggyback off what you were saying, it puts Trump in a predicament to have to answer for something. Like, after you have been constantly called out, he's going to have to answer to this in some way, because he's been avoiding it really this entire quarantine, this entire pandemic. So he really has to answer to a lot, to pretty much all of these things if he wants anybody to even start to buy into him, because he's really been put on blast.
Doesn't seem like he's capable of doing that.
Right.
I mentioned this before. I used to be friends with this man. If you stroke the ego or just tell him he's like a child, as far as like, he needs his ego to be stroked. He needs to feel like he's the best at something. And everyone in his circle is just lying to him. They've been lying to him his entire life that he's the greatest, he's the best, he's the that. So there's been no need to do self-improvement. He doesn't reflect on, and I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist by any stretch of the imagination, but as someone that used to be a friend, from what I noticed is, if you're never being told that you're wrong, why would you ever think you have to change? So just magnify that by 300 and some million, you know what I mean? And he's just being, there's no accountability. There's no self-reflection. I don't even think he feels bad. I really don't think he's capable of having empathy or even thinking that he's done anything wrong. I really don't.
Well,
we got to hear from AOC, one of the most anticipated speeches. We were hearing, in a week leading up to the DNC. What are your reactions?
Didn't feel like just a minute. I think that she was able to use that 60 seconds that some people were concerned might not be enough to make the case for the nominee she first supported. Of course, now she is supporting Vice President Biden as the party unites and comes together. But I think AOC has the popularity and the gusto within a certain wing of the progressive Democratic Party to be able to make that argument that everyone, even, those people who said they would never vote for Biden because they wanted Bernie to be in office, for them to understand the importance and the weight, the gravity of this moment. And I think that she did that very well.
I agree.
You know what's interesting, Seth? Notice how she was a part of the convention. She was a part of the convention seconding the nomination of Bernie Sanders. That's important to notice. It wasn't like she was just, jumping up and down for Joe Biden. She was only here for a minute to let the world know that she seconded the nomination of Bernie Sanders. So she keeps her uber progressive bona fides alive, and she doesn't capitulate too much to the center.
I mean, that's how the process plays out. Same thing happened with Hillary and Bernie in 2016. And so their original support was behind Bernie Sanders. And so she made that case tonight, despite the fact that she's also making the case for unity moving forward.
Yeah,
well, that makes sense why she got a minute then.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that she did that too, because Bernie supporters are still on the fence. And so the more, the more that we can highlight that Bernie is for Biden, the better, as far as unifying everyone.
It has become a bit of a cult of personality. Bernie Sanders supporters, AOC supporters, is that going to be enough? The leader, the two, one of the two most familiar faces, two major leaders of the progressive section of the entire party, I should say. Is that going to be enough for people who still are upset that Bernie Sanders himself is not the nominee?
I hope so, Brooke.
They need to get over it.
Yeah. Hello, somebody. Sean.
If I may, let me explain what I meant when I said about what AOC said. It's in the common order of a convention for people to be nominated. And what was probably agreed upon in the common order of the convention is that Bernie Sanders, although his campaign is suspended, he's endorsed Biden, the Biden campaign gave him the respect of still being nominated at the convention. And so AOC was there to second that nomination. It was not an act of rebellion. It was not, people running off the mill. No. This was probably agreed upon that Bernie Sanders had earned the right to still be placed in nomination. The point I was making was AOC's participation in the convention is still true to her progressive values and bona fides, meaning she didn't make a speech that's just independent of Bernie Sanders about Joe Biden. She made a speech urging all of us to come together, but as she nominated or seconded the nomination of Bernie Sanders. I thought it was a political savvy. It was my point that she showed doing that.
That's exactly what it was. It was staged. It was very much agreed upon. It was in the schedule. It was all part of the plan. It was supposed to, I think, from her perspective, in both ways, show she's there, it's unity, and also it's a warning. There is a big, loud section of this party that they want their voices heard. They're going to be pushing Joe Biden and Kamala Harris throughout. If they do become president and vice president, they are not going to stop hearing from that section of the party.
Yeah. And that's a good thing.
It stands in stark contrast to 2016 when Bernie Sanders was still fighting for that nomination at the convention, while Hillary Clinton actually was able to clinch it. It's a much different environment, a much different atmosphere this time around, because everyone is coming together, no matter whether they're more moderate or progressive, and saying that we do need to get behind Biden, and showing that unity without any of the hostility or contention, I think could help make the argument even clearer for some people who are still on the fence.
I want to ask you guys a question, sidebar. This is from last night, but what do y'all think about some of the criticism from Democrats that there were too many Republicans that spoke on Monday? Personally, I thought it was amazing to have that many. It's almost like kind of, I won't say we're flaunting it, but I mean, the fact that Republicans have cross-party lines to come on over and support Joe Biden, that is extremely powerful, I think. Kind of giving the Republicans that are on the fence kind of like permission to jump on over as well. What do you all think about that?
It would be different if when they came over, they said something negative, but they didn't come over to say anything negative. I think that, this entire DNC, from what I'm looking at, is trying to show unity, just like Seth was talking about. They're trying to show and bring people together, that we're all in this together, kind of that that whole ideology that we're doing this together. And how can you say that if you don't have all sides, all parties involved? So I don't think that, again, we always say that people are always looking for something to complain about, but that's not one of them. That's not one of the things that they should be complaining about. That's actually a very, very good thing. Probably wouldn't have happened under different circumstances.
I mean, it's important to win elections. Elections require a bit of mathematics. That's what happened in 2016. And so it is important in those swing states that we see voters who are independent or Republican, that they be convinced to cast their vote differently this time so that we can make a change in leadership in the Oval Office for those who feel that's necessary. But it's important to bring them over. If the Democratic base only appealed to itself in kind of an echo chamber, it would not be as successful.
It seems
and Seb, it is not, and you're absolutely right. To which I would add, it is not a betrayal of your values or your standards to create a space for people who finally come to Jesus to proclaim their love for the Lord. Okay. I mean, come on now. I mean, look, we have to. We want white folks, we want Republicans to realize the error of their ways, and Republicans have a lot to answer for. That's another conversation. But if we have a few that do, yeah, let them speak the language of the people who they used to be crazy like. Let Republicans talk to Republicans and help them understand, the ones that are willing to listen, that this ain't working. And if you keep going this way, we all gonna die.
I mean, there's two big Republican names that we're looking forward to hearing tonight too. I just want to mention John Kerry is supposed to speak on behalf of Biden. And then they're playing the video again with John McCain and the history of the relationship with him and Vice President Biden. So two big Republican names that are kind of being thrown in the ring as they convince people to come on board the Democratic side.
I think people have to stop only wanting to hear from people they agree with and only wanting to listen to people who say what they already know.
Well, I think in this hour, it's necessary for us to be able to see that Republicans, there's an entire movement of Republicans that are against Trump, because that's a very big deal. That people that are of his own party don't support the things that he's doing. They're just not presidential. They have no decency and no empathy. And the American people need that. That's what we need. And he doesn't have it.
Facts.
Is there something to be said about the criticism, though? Democrats, and it's been the largest criticism, that what the Democrats are always very focused on middle America, we know that that's usually a colloquialism for white America, very focused on Republicans and pulling Republicans and people in swing states, and not enough focus on the most loyal voting bloc, which is Black women.
It's a catch-22 because the voting bloc is that loyal that it seems at times it's taken for granted. But when we look at past elections, specifically 2016, the areas where Hillary Clinton kind of skipped out and felt that she could do well were some rural areas where there could have been some more outreach that maybe could have convinced some more voters, these kinds of voters that they're trying to appeal to, and could have swung the election the other way. I think that it's important to not take any of your voting blocks for granted, but I also do understand the criticism that there should be much more Latino and African-American representation in the convention and among the delegates overall to make sure that all people, all voices are heard.
And I think they could do both things simultaneously, that one doesn't have to suffer because they focus on, getting more Republicans and middle America to cross on over to come back over here, that doesn't mean that there's not only enough energy for that. They can still do that in outreach of Latino and the African-American community and not take us for granted. I think this year they got the message though. And we do have to, make it obvious what we do want as well, because I hear a lot of Black folks, we always complain, well, we're going to hold a vote if we don't get this, that, and the other, but we don't even have our ducks in a row of the things that we actually want and demand, like the other communities have. The LGBTQ community had a platform. They had things that they wanted and they got them because they organized. That's on us to do.
Yes.
That's on us to do. And we need to do that. And Joe Biden, we're in a perfect position because he does know he owes us big time, big time. So, we have to make it very obvious the things that we want.
Yeah. And then we have to make them give it to us. We have to do the work.
That part.
Voting is one thing, but then lobbying is next. Like, you have to do more. You can't just, we always just think that everybody's going to save our lives by putting them in office. And that's really not the truth. It's so many different levels.
And too many times we vote people into office and then we don't vote in the midterm election. So then they have a hostile Congress that does not allow them to do anything. I get so sick and tired of hearing about Barack Obama didn't do this, Barack Obama didn't do that. Okay, y'all showed up for the vote, and 2 years later, you did not show up for the vote. And he had his own Democratic people in his own party standing in the way, being obstructionists to their own president, because they still really weren't all the way on board with it.
Yes. And this is what I was talking about with Schumer, how important it was for him to point out that we need to, that Democrats need to take over the Senate, because we can have a president in office, but if Congress is not on one accord, it doesn't matter anyway. A lot of the things that we want to get done aren't being done because of the Senate. So, and that's because of lack of voting, thinking that you don't have to vote on all levels.
Every president tried to get health care reform done, and it wasn't until Barack Obama got into office his first couple of years, correct? And that's when he had a Democratic Senate. He had the Congress the first 2 years. Then after that, I believe it was a wrap after that. I think that's when he was able to get it through because we had the votes.
That's right.
So, president to be able to get things done, don't just get all ride or die and rowdy every 4 years. We need you every 2 years after that. So I'm just saying. And the Democrats are expanding the base, and the Republicans are they're chipping their base down. So it's time to attack right now while they're a weakened party right now. Trump did a lot of damage, in my opinion.
The reasons why you want to take control of the Senate, right? It's on full blast right now in the middle of dealing with coronavirus. 170,000 Americans have lost their lives. The number of people that are out of work, it's a horrifying number. And the Senate is not making a lot of people happy. The Republican-led Senate, it's not, they're taking breaks. They're not making a lot of people happy right now.
It's too much payback and tit for tat, right? It's like, well, we can't give the Democrats the bill that they want because they'll get credit. So let's just withhold this part of it and let's hold it up and make that. Everyone's trying to make each other look bad. And that's what happens when you have a split Congress like that.
You know what, Claudia? It's also about power. It's also about the entire United States Senate, at least on the Republican side. They're thoroughly committed to one thing, and that's just keeping power. That's that they don't see power as a means by which to help people better their lives. They don't see power as the way you make a country better. They see power as a way for them to be powerful. And they've capitulated on their values. They've turned against their whatever morals they claim to have. I wish a Republican would try to come to me and tell me it's the party of morality. Please.
I mean, to your point, that's why there were so many people who were so acerbically critical of Trump, especially Republicans running against him in the initial election, who now are some of his biggest supporters. Their tweets daily, their comments daily are the opposite of the name calling and the dagger throwing that they were doing when they were running against him, for the reason that you just mentioned, Sean, to hold on to their power. Because we've heard some of them say, the hearsay through third parties, that they would rather ride this wave out and hold on to their seats than to speak up and potentially lose that political power.
And you know what? I have a problem with the evangelicals with all this support for this president, which you claim morals are so important to you, yet you're with a president that has this kind of record. I don't have to bring up everything he's done. We all know what he's done. And then support candidates like Roy Moore. You know what I mean? Like a child molester to hold on to power like that. When you're supporting people, like you're putting party over your own morals that you claim are so important. And the Republican Party has really been, they got a lot of explaining to do right now with this, like, pick and choose when you want to be, play that moral high ground card, because you really can't play it anymore. You can't.
We've got a viewer comment, Robin Lewis, agreeing with you all. It's our job to hold the officials accountable. I think the question is there's a lack of focus when it comes to officials other than just who's running for president and vice president. Local elections
But Brooke,
matter.
You said it earlier. What happens and Brooke, you were profound with this. People get caught up in a cult of personality, and they rush to AOC, they rush to Bernie Sanders, they rush to Kamala Harris, but they don't do what a democracy requires. And that is that people are engaged at the level of their interest. I could give two damns about Joe Biden. What I care is about what Joe Biden does and his policies, how they affect my life. Right. You have to exist in politics at the level of your interest and stop not being involved when the name you like is not on the ballot. Your interests are always on the ballot.
Right. Come on, Sean. You better say that again. Come on with interest, because that is how you vote. My God, today. I'm sick of it. And we do get wrapped up in the names of who's on this and that and the third, and then just anybody jumping on the ballot and all of this foolishness. This is a serious seat. And I don't know, if we don't see that right now in this moment, how serious this seat is, then I don't know what else. I don't know what else we can do. I don't know.
So what do we say to Black people? That there's a comment from the viewers. Christopher Catchin says, "There's no incentive to follow through with the Black agenda. What do they have to lose? Certainly not our money." What do we say to Black people to keep them engaged and to keep them hopeful every election? Because at some point there is going to be a time where we do need to cash in, right?
Yeah, but what is the Black agenda? Have we gathered together properly and created one to submit? That's another thing I'm getting tired of with Black people. We go, well, they haven't done this and that, and we haven't done our work. We just talked about this. We have to create a Black agenda and we have to submit it. And then we have to hold them to it, just like you guys said that other cultures are doing. We're not doing that. So it's weird because we complain the most, but we're doing the least. And I love my people, trust me, but I'm seeing what's going on. We're not doing enough. You know, we don't even vote. We're not even voting like we're supposed to.
And what about
you cut off your nose to spite your face? And it's, you know, is the question more, what do the party leaders have to lose, and not so much what do Black people have to lose? Because there is still a lot to lose if that's what you're worried about, right?
And then we hear about reparations. So
right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm not gonna just vote, and I know I'll probably get dragged on social media for this. I'm not a one issue voter. Like, if you don't vote for, if you're not for reparations, then I cannot rock with you.
Right.
Because there's still a whole bunch of other things. My life will still be fine whether I get reparations or not. I care about a whole lot of other things. Healthcare, my environment, seeing a bunch of plastic bottles in the ocean, smog in the air. The list goes on and on and on. The healthcare, schools.
What's funny, when you ask Black people what they want for reparations, a lot of those things are things the government should already be doing to take care of those communities in the first place.
Exactly.
To be on the same level as everyone else and to have that same starting point. And that should not come in the form of reparations. That should already be the gold standard.
And we should have it already. And if they have to have it spelled out, then we need to spell it out again and keep spelling it out again and not get tired, just like some of the people that have marched before us and fought before us in the civil rights movement. We're just going to have to keep continuing until we're satisfied. That's just the way it has to be. Just like you have to continue to vote every 4 years. That's just the way that it has to be, or in 2 years, and on all levels. You have to keep fighting. You just have to keep doing it.
And don't get me wrong, reparations is something that we should definitely be having a serious conversation about. I was watching something
in real life.
They calculated the value of the free labor that we contribute to this country, that makes it the financial superpower that it is, at 11 cents an hour. It's all adjusted with, you know, what we're owed is basically $19 trillion, and that's on the low end. That is 1 year of the GDP in America, right? That's 1 year. Mm-hmm. 1 year. So we can eventually get there, but like, we should be inching towards that. Actually, we should. And not just saying, oh, it's not on, if we're not getting it done right now, I'm out of this election, because then you get Donald Trump.
Yep. When
We've got another viewer comment. Speaking of Donald Trump, Biggs wants to know what Trump is doing that does personally hurt Black people.
What? My God, today.
I think the clearest example would be the disparity in coronavirus, or really any health situation, when it comes to African Americans, people of color, Latinos versus white communities. Even just longevity, you are expected to live a longer life if you live in certain communities that are white versus Black. Now, that may not be specifically this president's fault, but his response to coronavirus and targeting certain communities has definitely disproportionately taken a lot of Black lives, a lot of lives of color versus white lives. That's one thing that is personally hurting Black people.
Well, let's
the immigration policy as well, because there's also Afro-Latinos, there's Haitian people who are by large numbers dealing with immigration issues, Jamaican people, Nigerian people. There's stories of lots of Black people that are dealing with the fallout from some of these immigration policies.
Well, let's just talk about gun control. And that's all I'm going to say. He hasn't done anything with gun control. And Black men and women are dying by the boatloads because of gun control, because there is no gun control. And prison reform, let's go there as well. Those things are affecting Black people. So you can Google that for people that like to do research.
Or, Selena, or how about this?
He
calls our women whores. He calls Black athletes sons of bitches.
How about
he,
that?
He lies thousands upon thousands of times. He retweets videos where people say white power. He calls Mexicans rapists. He has totally disrespected Black people. And if you're a Black person asking how Donald Trump has hurt Black people, then there's something wrong with you. I'm going to take that to be a rhetorical question that doesn't deserve an answer.
And please stop with this. He's done more for Black people than any other president. Like, he really shoved that slogan down your throats, and y'all are eating it all up. So if you just keep repeating something over and over and over again, we're supposed to just rock with it. Yeah, a lot of Black people have jobs now. Guess what? They're 2 instead of 1 good paying jobs. They're 2 shitty paying jobs instead of 1 good paying jobs. Look it up. It's not, there's not an increase in wages. It's people having to be, they're underemployed still. They're having multiple jobs that both pay crappy wages.
And Claudia, not to mention, the greatest expansion of Black wealth happened under Bill Clinton, not Donald Trump. Donald Trump passed the First Step Act and did not appropriate $1 for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So let's just call a thing a thing.
I'm just saying, hey man, these this is common sense. We can just really start with.
I'm about to cuss, and I need to be.
There's also the coded language he's been tweeting and talking about as of recently, letting his suburban voting base, as he says, letting them know that they don't deserve to have certain people moving into their neighborhoods. Basically saying that he's against policies over the years that have been put in place to even slowly inch back redlining that also has cost Black Americans billions of dollars over the years.
Yes, Brooke, and actually disrespecting our leaders too. John Lewis, when he passed away, I didn't like his commentary. It was outrageous. And you disrespected Barack Obama by not wanting to hang his photo in the White House. So it's things like that that are blatant disrespect. These are Black people that you're disrespecting. So I'm very confused as to how someone could not understand how Donald Trump does not affect Black people in a negative way. I'm just really confused.
He's changed the tone of our nation. Not that it was ever perfect, but we were kind of on a better path when Barack Obama was in office. It seemed like we carried ourselves with a little bit of class, a little act right. And, you know, by being okay with some of the things that he says and the types of people he props up and, you know, doesn't condemn, he's giving the green light. He's always constantly sounding the dog whistle and throwing red meat to these people who eat it up. And you see the behavior of all these Karens that are happening now, and they seem empowered and they seem totally fine. Remember, there was a time when I felt like they were a little bit afraid of us and we might do something. That shit is gone now. They are so bold the way they come at us and just want to attack and just do things to us. And that's directly because they are empowered by Donald Trump. I went to a gun show this weekend in Texas and I had to leave. I was so disgusted at the vibe. There was all kind of MAGA paraphernalia around there. There was all kind of signs. They had a rifle sign with the black rifle, said Black Rifles Matter. It's all these little digs at Black people that the whole crowd was taking. And I was like, I got to leave right now. My friends were like, well, why? I'm like, we don't belong here. I felt like we got to get the hell on out of here. And the way these people were, it was just disgusting. Like, I felt like we were in 2 different countries. That's what it felt like. I did not feel like we were fellow citizens at all. And thank you. That's attributed a lot and largely in part to Donald Trump. The pride that they have, they think that this man is really checking for them. Donald Trump would never be seen with any of these people in real life. He would not. They could not even spend one night in any of his hotels, nor could they afford it.
Also, a lot of people, there's a big focus, and there should be a focus on honoring the late John Lewis. What seems to be the best way to honor a man who was willing to risk his life for the voting rights of people like us. And also, has he ever lived in a world where there was a perfect candidate for him? I can't imagine when he was going through times where he's being beaten up, being jailed, and he would sit back and say, I'm not going to vote because the candidate in front of me is not perfect.
Right. That's a very good point, Brooke. That's a very good point.
So if he can vote, I don't really want to hear excuses about it being hot or people don't want to be out there. If people like John Lewis fought and literally shed blood for us to be able to do this, let's not disrespect the legacy of those people that sacrificed so much for us.